Cartoons don't exist anymore. Now, about a year ago, I made a video called Anime Kill Cartoons. And this is kind of a part 2 to that, but I did kind of want to talk about something a little bit more different and focus on more of the cartoon aspect more than anything. Now, technically, do cartoons still exist? Yes. But are they as relevant as they used to be? No, not at all. And to echo another thing that I said in my old video, cartoons themselves used to be the standard for animation style content. Cartoons were what the standard was when you heard about, oh, did you see that new animated show? People didn't think about anime back then, it was a cartoon. Cartoon style and cartoon style shows were the peak of animation style content before anime took over and anime basically replaced cartoons and took its spot. And you can even say the same thing for, movies or even, freelance animation for, people who make their own independent animations. People would now go for more of an anime style versus back in the day when people used to go for more of a cartoonish style, more of a Cartoon Network type of thing. Now people go for more of an anime style and more of an anime aesthetic because cartoons have been replaced in every which way or fashion you can think of, as far as style, as far as relevance among animation, and even among movies. Even among movies, the old cartoonish style is being replaced and not really being replicated anymore. The only, cartoon style that we get now in movies, especially Disney, is the Despicable Me type of 3D animation. You don't really see a lot of stop motion movies anymore. You don't really see a lot of, straight up 2D cartoon movies anymore. You see more of the 3D kind of, I guess you can say like clay type animations where they kind of look like they're made out of clay. Or like kind of like they're made out of Play-Doh and they're kind of shiny or whatever like that. Those are the types of cartoons that we get now. We don't get it's not as much variety as there used to be in the type of animation, especially in the movie sphere. And to kind of stay on the movie sphere, this is one of the things that is hurting the most with cartoons. Cartoons used to thrive off of their movies and their movie diversity that they had back in the day within the 2000s and even the 2010s. You had stuff like Toy Story and Mulan and The Lion King, but they were all animated very differently, with even stuff like The Incredibles or The Nightmare Before Christmas or Coraline or Paranorman with stop motion. You had different styles of animation for these cartoon movies. But it seems like once the Despicable Me type of animation kind of took over and Despicable Me became the entire franchise that it has, that's the type of animation style that we've kind of been stuck with, especially with Disney movies. Disney kind of fell in love with the whole Despicable Me animation style and they haven't let it go at all, because if you look at any of Disney's movies over the past couple of years, all their movies have been in that animation style. They haven't really differed from that at all. I wish they would, but it doesn't really seem like they are. And are there still good cartoon movies that come out? Yes, I'm not denying that, but just judging from the good amount of cartoon movies we used to get, even 10 years ago versus the amount of good cartoon movies we get now, they're very far and few between. And when I say good, I'm not meaning something like if it's on TV or if you see it on Netflix, you just pop it on for background noise. I mean something that you will sit down and watch, something that will grab your attention. Not something that you'll just watch every now and again or watch once and then forget about a couple weeks later. That's kind of what I feel like is happening with cartoon movies. I'm not necessarily talking about anime movies. I'm talking about strictly cartoon movies. And I kind of make this simpler. I'm going to kind of, break down, my definition of what a cartoon is, because I feel like a lot of times we kind of get mixed up between what is a cartoon and what is an anime, or what is cartoon style and what is anime style and things like that. So I'm going to kind of break down what I mean by cartoon and anime.
Now a word from our sponsor.
Hi, before using Dubby, I was a father of 12. But now, after Dubby, I'm a deadbeat dad. Let's see what we got in here for the Big Dubby. We got the motherfucking. We got the motherfucking. Oh shit. So the first flavor of Dubby, we have peach and beet.
You what?
Second flavor of Dubby, we got the dragon mayo. Next flavor we have laxative.
What?
Laxy grenade. Next flavor we have this is a 0 sugar powder pack. And last but certainly not least, we have Pines Berry Splash. I'm Wasabi and this has been your Dubby advertisement.
Now, people have always kind of, debated the differences between anime and cartoons, and some shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender definitely confused and blur the line between cartoon and anime. But if anything, I feel like the main difference between anime and cartoons is the violence. Now, I'm not meaning like gore per se or talking about violence, but really just how they handle violence, how they handle fighting in cartoons versus how they handle it in anime. And it's kind of a mix between the two. Because if you look at certain shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender, they avoid saying the word death like it's the plague. For death, but not say the word death or die or kill or anything like that. I feel like that's the main difference between cartoons and animes, is how they handle death and violence and how they talk about it and how the show handles, the fight scene. They'll say, oh, if you do this, you'll be destroyed, or if you do this, it'll destroy you. Like they'll use the word destroy more than anything. But the only other big difference that you can really say between anime and cartoons is that cartoons, especially back in the day, catered more towards a kid audience, more of like, a middle school or elementary school type audience. They didn't really, cater towards, more of an adult or teen audience. It would be rare when a cartoon would do that. But on the other side of that coin, you have adult cartoons like Family Guy and American Dad and Robot Chicken. And even though there are adult cartoons like Family Guy and American Dad, they're far few in between, as there are less adult cartoons being made, because people still see to this day, even in 2024, a lot of people still think when they see a cartoon that it's immediately for kids. Or when they see any type of animation, to be honest with you, they assume that it's for kids. Because like we all remember when Sausage Party came out in movie theaters, and almost every parent took their kids to go see the movie, and they were all, up in arms about the movie, being rated R. But shows like Family Guy and Robot Chicken are like the outliers, which is why you don't see a lot of them a lot of the times. When you have shows like that, most of the time they be live. Most shows like that are live action and they're not made into cartoons, because people would assume that a cartoon is only made for kids. But therein lies the problem with people thinking that animation is only for kids and only made for kids and can't be made for adults. Because I'm sure we've all seen shows like Gargoyles or Batman animated series way back in the day, where those were dark shows, but they were cartoons, which only proves that there can be cartoons that can be for more of an older audience. Older audiences can enjoy cartoons just as much as the next person. And there's several other examples of cartoons, being able to, be watched by an older audience or just a straight up adult audience. But with the main focus of cartoons being kids, a lot of the times they sacrifice so much to try to make it for kids. The humor gets sacrificed, the animation a lot of times gets sacrificed, the writing especially gets sacrificed a lot of times, because a lot of cartoons have what I like to call like the Dora talk effect. And what I mean by like the Dora talk effect is like they're talking, like the characters in the show will talk like they're talking to a child. They won't talk like a regular person will. They'll talk to you like the characters in the show will talk to you like you're a 5-year-old. They'll talk to you like you don't understand what's going on in the scene, and they'll over explain it in this kind of like baby talk voice when they don't need to. But they do it because they're thinking that their audience is like 5 or 8-year-olds. Especially with shows that are about like, mysteries or have any type of problem solving involved in the show. They explain it to you like you're a 5-year-old when you don't, and they explain it to you like you're a 5-year-old when they don't need to. Cause a lot of times they'll take like the Scooby-Doo route. They'll like over explain the mystery like in every scene of the show, like they haven't explained it to you like 10,000 times already, which ends up making said cartoon not watchable by a larger audience. And because once you alienate your audience by talking to them and explaining the show to them like they're a 5-year-old, older audiences won't watch the cartoon no matter how good the animation is. It'll be something that they just put on in the background so that the kids can be quiet while they're on the phone or something. And the thing is, there can be and there has been cartoons that have been for more of a mature audience all the way through, because you had shows like Gargoyles and the Batman animated series, Teen Titans and things like that, which those were for more of a older audience, like more of a teenager or even more an adult audience. Like those were shows that were made for a older audience, not necessarily made for kids. And even something like Avatar: The Last Airbender, yeah, it's kid friendly, but the older you get, the more you realize that like this wasn't made for like a 5-year-old to really understand. but they were still able to watch it while the older audience was still able to enjoy it as well because of the themes and the things that they talked about and the messaging and stuff like that. That's what makes a good cartoon, to where everybody, no matter how old they are, can enjoy said cartoon. It's just like Looney Tunes. Everybody, no matter how old you are, can enjoy a episode of Looney Tunes. The old Looney Tunes, new Looney Tunes, because it's just good. You don't have to be a certain age to enjoy it. You don't have to be a certain age demographic to enjoy Looney Tunes, because it's for everybody. It's for kids, it's for teenagers, it's adults, it's for everybody. And I feel like the thing that's happening now is that because most cartoons, and especially most cartoon movies, they're good on a first watch, but the more you watch it, you don't enjoy it more. Like most of the great cartoon movies that we remember, like Toy Story, you enjoy them each and every time you watch them. It's not like you enjoy it less and less, the more you watch it. And a lot of the times they didn't get unnecessarily sequels and trilogies and 4 or 5 plus movies like they do now. Nowadays, just everything up under the sun has been getting a reboot, or like a 4th movie or a 5th movie or a TV show or the spinoff or this or that. It's like cartoons and cartoon movies, they don't really get a chance to breathe anymore before they have an entire cinematic universe made for it. And a lot of times it doesn't really work with cartoons because cartoons aren't designed to have a multiverse or a whole cinematic universe like Marvel movies and anime does. Anime is built to have universes and different timelines, and 3-4 movies and a spin-off and things like that, because the storylines and the story itself are just more expansive. It's built to be that big of a story. But with cartoons, they're not built to be that. They're not built to have this whole universe. They're most good cartoons are good on one singular storyline and one singular timeline. They're not meant to have alternate timelines and alternate story plots and shit like that. They're not meant for that. But the main thing that kills a lot of cartoons, besides them reaching for certain age demographics and things like that, is the writing. Now, unlike anime and unlike a lot of other movies, writing in cartoons, to me, it feels especially crucial because of the fact that a lot of times they're appealing to kids and they're appealing to more of a younger audience, so their writing has to be top notch, or at least near top notch, so that it could be watchable. Shows like Danny Phantom, Avatar: The Last Airbender, the first couple of seasons of SpongeBob and things like that, or As Told by Ginger, or some of the older shows. Those shows and the writing and the timing of the jokes and how the jokes were said, how the jokes were written, those things matter the most to cartoons, and that's the thing that I feel like has killed a lot of cartoons and killed a lot of cartoons' momentum. But don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting cartoons to, have Lord of the Rings level writing. But the writing of cartoons, a lot of times I feel like takes a sacrifice. I feel like a lot of times with cartoons, the writing takes a backseat to a lot of things, depending on the type of cartoon that it is. Because we've all seen those cartoons that are just being made just to sell toys. Like Hot Wheels Battle Force 5, for an example, was just made just to sell, Hot Wheels toys instead of Hot Wheels cars and things like that. Because I just watched, the first episode very recently, and the pacing in the first episode alone is so fast. And it's just kind of they don't really give it time to breathe, because they're trying to introduce the cars and introduce the characters of the show so quickly that they don't really take the time to give things any moment to breathe, none whatsoever. Because normally when you start off the first episode, when you introduce a character and you introduce a character into a new world and things like that, especially when they're dealing with aliens and multiverses and shit, it would normally take an episode or 2, maybe 3, but they cover all of that within the first 10 minutes. The first 10 minutes of the episode, he's already kind of said aliens and robots and monsters and shit. Okay, fine. He doesn't really there's no questioning it, none whatsoever. It's just immediate, oh, there's monsters, aliens, and robots that I gotta fight with this car that has a chainsaw on the front of it and shit. But stuff like that, where cartoons are just made just to sell toys, the writing takes a back seat a lot of times to just sell the toys or to market something, and you don't really get an opportunity to enjoy the cartoon a lot of times, because they're just trying to sell you stuff. They're trying to sell you toys or sell you a Power Ranger Megazord or some shit like that. They're not really trying to make the cartoon good. They just want you to buy their product, which I understand that, but it's like, if you want to sell people something, then you might as well make the cartoon of it good, and you might as well make the writing good so that people can watch said cartoon so that they can want to buy your product and things like that. The writing in cartoons suffers a lot from stuff like that, where, you know, you have to, you know, deal with the bad writing and deal with the, you know, thrown together characters that don't really have a personality. They're one note. One character is the character that knows technology. The other one is strong. The other one is, you know, happy-go-lucky and shit like that. They don't really have any depth to them. They're just one note. They're just like an emotion. Like, one of them is happy, one of them is sad, one of them is moody. Like, they're not really characters. They're just kind of, you know, there a lot of the time. And I feel like one other thing that cartoons don't really do well is adapt. A lot of cartoons haven't really adapted well to, like, you know, the more modern, you know, streaming service, you know, kind of way that we've been, you know, watching shows for like the past 5 or 7 years at this point. Cartoons haven't really adapted to, like, you know, bringing new cartoons to those streaming platforms, because most of the time when you see a new cartoon, it's on cable. A majority of people now don't have cable. Majority of people now don't watch cable. They're watching, like, you know, Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max and shit like that. They're not watching cable. They're not watching, you know, TV or anything like that. They're just watching streaming services and YouTube. And anime has adapted to that well by having stuff like Crunchyroll. And you know, we did have Funimation at one point in time, RP Funimation, but like did have Funimation to, you know, like watch these animes and we could even watch them on YouTube and shit like that too. But with cartoons, unless you're watching, like, you know, the Cartoon Network YouTube channel and watching like a marathon, some shit like that, you can't really watch new cartoons like that unless you're watching cable. So unless you still have a cable box in 2024, you don't know what new cartoons are coming out. You don't know what new cartoons are on Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. You know, Cartoon Network doesn't seem like they're making new cartoons these days. But you get my point. Like, there's no way to watch new cartoons, because the only way that they're, you know, showing us that we can watch cartoons is on cable, which nobody's watching anymore. I feel like that failure to adapt to streaming services and adapt to people watching more YouTube and more, you know, Netflix and shit like that, that has also held cartoons back significantly, and, you know, people watching and people caring about them, and it's only given anime, you know, a prime spot to, you know, take over and be, you know, the prime animation thing that people want to watch. Because if there's no convenient way for us to watch your cartoons, then nobody's really gonna watch your cartoon. Yeah, you might get some views on cable, but you're not maximizing the potential that you could get by putting it on Netflix or putting it on Hulu or HBO Max, or even just having your own streaming services for stuff like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. Like, I don't know why Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon doesn't have like their own dedicated streaming services. If they do, they need to promote them shits more, because I don't know if they have one or not. Because if they do, I've never heard of it. And like, if they don't have one, they need to make their own dedicated streaming services where, like, you can watch the old Cartoon Network shows or old Nickelodeon shows, because people will pay for that. Like, people will pay for a Cartoon Network app where you can watch stuff like Johnny Bravo and the Powerpuff Girls and Ed, Edd n Eddy and Teen Titans. Like, people will pay for that. Like, that's not something that, like, people won't pay for. Like, you'll make great money by doing that, especially with Nickelodeon, because Nickelodeon fell off harder than Cartoon Network did. But I'm not trying to sit here and like bash Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon or even Disney Channel, for example. It's just like it's just like cartoons in general fell off, and like they're basically irrelevant now. Besides the, you know, occasional Disney movie that comes out every now and again that's pretty decent, like Moana and Soul and stuff like that. But otherwise than that, you don't really think about cartoons at all. You don't think that cartoons basically exist anymore. Like, I feel like in a couple years they won't really exist. Like, cartoon shows won't really exist anymore, and we'll just have, like, you know, the occasional Disney movie, or, you know, the occasional, you know, Illumination movie and shit like that. And that makes me really fucking sad, because I feel like cartoons are kind of like, you know, a necessary thing to have, because cartoons, well, at least back in the day, they were like, you know, people's bridge into anime. Like cartoons and anime went hand in hand and were side by side. Like, you would watch cartoons during the day, and then you would turn on Toonami to watch anime at the nighttime. And like, you would go from watching cartoons to watching anime. And like, you could like go back and forth between watching cartoons and watching anime. There wasn't one without the other. You had cartoons, and then you had anime. You had cartoons because of anime. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you would, at least for me, I end up liking certain animes that I didn't think I would like because I like certain cartoons. Like I like the Gundam series because I watched the Transformers cartoons and things like that. And cartoons being in the irrelevant state that they are just makes me sad because cartoons are important. Like cartoons are important for, like, you know, animation in general. And I'm not saying they're dead, it just feels like they don't exist. It feels like they don't matter. It feels like nobody's really paying attention. It feels like nobody's really paying attention to cartoons. It feels like cartoons don't have, you know, any say in what's going on in animation like they used to. Like they don't have that type of pull like they used to back in the day. And that makes me sad. Like I want cartoons to, you know, at least, you know, relive some of their old glory days like they used to. I want cartoons to, you know, be good. I want cartoons to be diverse again. Like I didn't even go into, like, you know, all of the cartoons that were meant for little kids, like, you know, Oswald and Franklin and, you know, and like the Backyardigans and like the fucking Wonder Pets and shit like that, or even the kids cartoons from PBS Kids and stuff like that. Like that type of stuff doesn't really exist anymore because anime is kind of taking over the animation space, and cartoons are just kind of letting them, like they're just kind of letting anime take over everything and be the one singular animation that we watch. But that's just my thoughts and, you know, my little rant about it. Let me know what y'all think about it in the comments, and I'll see y'all next time.